I was around when we did education reform in the mid-90s. And I served on the Board of Ed for 5 years when we implemented the MCAS and the curriculum frameworks. And I always thought the deal was, if you want to call it that, was basically state agrees to significantly increase its funding for K through 12 education to level the playing field on a dollar-for-dollar basis between and among communities so that everybody gets at least a foundation. The trade on that was, and we leave with locals the sort of how question with respect to how you educate kids. The trade on it was the what, which was the state's going to establish the frameworks that everybody's going to teach under, and we're going to have an exam at the 3rd grade, the 8th grade, and the 10th grade level that's going to determine how you're doing with respect to performance, and you got to pass the 10th grade test to graduate from high school. And that was the trade, and I actually thought that was a pretty good trade. And it got processed like mad. There were literally hundreds of hours, probably thousands of hours of hearings that engaged the local education community, the school committees, the teachers, the administrators, parents, in a dialogue around how that was going to work, what it was going to look like, and all the rest. And for 20 years, I think it pretty much stood the test of time. And if you look at the sort of performance on average for schools in Massachusetts over that period, you know, we still to this day are the only school system, statewide school, we're the only state in the country that's finished #1 in the English and math exam on the National Assessment of Educational Performance, and we've done it 5 times. Now, we still have an achievement gap that we have to close, and I've talked a lot about that. As governor, it would be a major priority of mine to continue to close that gap. But I've always thought that education should be driven by some combination of a relationship between state and local government, which is why I testified against the Common Core in 2010. I was the only person who testified against it. I testified against it for 3 reasons. First, there was no process around that. In fact, we were being asked as a state to sign up for something that didn't even exist. It was a concept at that point, which scared me to death. Number 2, I was very worried about turning that whole process of establishing whatever the frameworks were going to be over to the federal government, which is very far away from somebody teaching here in Springfield, somebody teaching in Swampscott where my kids went, that type of thing. And number 3, I didn't like the idea of Massachusetts becoming just like everybody else in education. I've always thought of education as sort of a unique, competitive, and distinctive advantage that we bring to so many different things. And my attitude at this point is I'm still a skeptic. But, you know, the state's kind of moved forward with this at this point in time, and we'll have to see sort of where we are. My view is if we can continue to be distinctive and we can continue to chart our own destiny and chart our own course at a state and local level under the framework associated with that, I'm happy to play by that standard. But if we can't, I'm going to want to get out of it and get back to doing what we were doing, I think, pretty successfully for a long time, which is Massachusetts working with local communities to create some kind of a balanced framework around making sure that we were doing what made sense for kids.